Hello, Hello, fellow humanoids. It's Steven. In this video, you're going to learn what it's like to be addicted to opiates and how I personally had recovered from it. When I started doing opiates, what I got out of it gave me a lot of, almost like a blanket of warmth and comfort and a sense of ease, I would say, just overall. But as I started getting some type of tolerance to opiates, it became almost like a stimulant. If I didn't have it, I was heavily lethargic and or just not motivated to do anything. I'd feel like incomplete without it very soon into the addiction.
Red alert. Red alert.
Drug addiction is terrible. Our goal with this video is to deter anyone from ever trying any of the substances that we did. This is only to prevent people making the same mistakes that we did. This video is for educational and harm reduction purposes only.
So I think coupled with my addictive personality or mindset and the chemically addictive properties of opiates, I found myself needing, if not more, just a constant supply of them to feel good as much as possible. I found myself, going to shady places of town, if not shady corners of the internet.
What the fuck is the internet?
And along with that came a lot of scams and putting myself in danger and whatnot. But honestly, all the worries and concerns and dangers fell to the wayside when I had my pursuit of getting opiates in mind. Then a little further in my addiction, I started to be less accountable at work, not really being able to make a steady financial income. So money was a big reason why I couldn't get them as frequently as I wanted. So sadly to say, I resorted to stealing, lying, manipulating people, and I really kept people in my life that were close to me. It was kind of just a transactional relationship. If you didn't know someone who had opiates and or you didn't have money that I could use to get opiates and I couldn't manipulate it out of you. And this is all in recollect now. At the time it was very subconscious that if you didn't have something I needed, I didn't make time for you. As my situation progressed, I ended up, because of the selfish and self-centered state of addiction, I lost all the people that actually cared about me. I've used up and lied to all the people around me that I was using to get drugs. I pretty much expended all my resources and was getting turned away from literally doorsteps and getting kicked out of houses here and there. I found myself kind of alone, and not only alone because of people not around me physically, but I really had no maybe not self-worth, but I didn't know who I was. I realized what was at stake. I knew if I didn't change, my sense of being or my happiness essentially was at stake. And ultimately, I knew connections to loved ones, I would sever them forever, and I held those very close. So really, I kind of humbled myself to the point where, I didn't do the humbling. Life kind of beat me into a state of reasonableness, and I know I needed help. I reached out to my family, and a core person in my life was my mom. And as much motivational, talks and love she threw my way, I don't think she didn't really understand the nature of addiction. She was trying to get me to build up the willpower to just say no to drugs, and it didn't work. That was my problem the whole time. It's like, of course, at this point with conviction, I didn't want to do drugs anymore, but I found myself just for the moment saying, I'll just be comfortable one more time. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Those tomorrows is just accumulated into years, and it was just this vicious cycle that I couldn't get out of. I couldn't say no, really, when it came down to it, and or I couldn't say no every day. So I found myself, like I said, back in that vicious cycle, and I needed help from people. What really ended up helping was people that had been just like me, that understand me, have seemingly recovered from it. And I had found I'd gone to rehab, certain programs and whatnot. I found a support group of addicts that have seemingly recovered, And I kind of just did what they did, and I listened, because at this point I was super desperate. I didn't have any answers. As much as I try to control my life and control my addiction, at this point I found out that I really couldn't, and I gave into that thought, and that made me susceptible to being open-minded to what other people could tell me to do. And as much as I didn't want to do it, I kind of followed their guidance, and that's definitely the first step for me that led me into recovery and a sober life. I have to say, those same people taught me how to be happy and be sober, because I didn't want to be sober. And sober kind of sounded like somber to me. I was like an adrenaline junkie. I wanted to have a fun life, but they kind of taught me about how taking on responsibility in life is kind of the biggest adventure, and it's the harder thing to do, and it's, you know, it's that's what accumulates real deep happiness in your life, but also brings excitement into it. Other than, like, you know, the spikes that come with drugs, it was the same philosophy, but I wasn't using drugs to get that high in life. I was actually living life, and it was a little bit harder. It was kind of a pay now and play later mentality. Instead of an addiction, it was play now and I pay later. This was more when I take on responsibility and do what I should do now, I get that fulfillment feeling in life, and that's kind of more sustainable, I found out. And drug addiction isn't. It's so progressive, and it leads you somewhere where you don't want to be. And just, they show me the flip side of that, and this way of life is kind of leading me exactly where I want to be. Even though I don't know where that is, it's good. So if anyone out there is struggling with addiction themselves, and or knows someone in addiction, or just wants to learn about addiction or another perspective of it, drop a comment in the video, and we'd love to talk to you.